They said no human could survive a duel with an Avarian knight until one did. The arena of Tethranine shimmered beneath the twin suns, a massive bowl of obsidian and steel that hummed with alien energy. Billions watched through the galactic network as Commander Kael Rhyne, the last surviving human combatant, stepped into the ring. His armor was scratched, patched with improvised nanofiber, and his pulse echoed louder than the crowd's roar. Opposite him stood Zirath, an Avarian knighter being twice his size. Encased in iridescent biometal, moving with predatory precision, the Avarians had ruled the art of combat for 10 millennia. Their doctrine was absolute, victory through prediction. Every move, every feint, every counter-strike was calculated by quantum instinct. Honed through generations of genetic refinement, they could see the future of battle 5 steps ahead. Humans, by contrast, were unpredictable. That made them ... irritating and dangerous. Kael's fingers tightened around the hilt of his plasma spear. "Let's make history, Birdman," he muttered through his cracked visor. The gong sounded a vibration so deep it rippled through Kael's bones. Zirath moved first, a blur of energy. His plasma scythe screamed through the air, its edge grazing Kael's shoulder as sparks flew. The alien's eyes gleamed. "You are slow, human." Kael smiled, blood trickling down his cheek. "Maybe, but you think too much." He lunged it at Zirath, but at the ground, rolling, tossing a shock mine behind him. The alien sidestepped before it even detonated. Predictable, Kael cursed. He was running out of options. The alien doctrine was built on pattern-reading movement, heart rate, muscle tension, even micro-expressions. Every human move had been catalogued and defeated centuries ago. But Kael wasn't following a playbook. He was following chaos. He dropped his weapon. The audience gasped. Zirath paused, his head tilting in confusion. "Surrender," Kael smirked. "No, I'm adapting." He charged, bare-handed, sliding under the alien's guard, grabbing the plasma scythe with his gauntlet, and twisting it in a way that defied combat logic. His hand, burning from the weapon's energy pulse. He let instinct take over. Reckless, illogical, human. Avarian combat protocols couldn't predict insanity. The strike landed a direct blow to Zirath's chestplate. The alien stumbled backward, armor cracking in disbelief. The crowd erupted in chaos. Never had an Avarian knight been touched, let alone wounded by a baseline human. Kael panted, his chest heaving. "You see the future," he said between breaths. "But you forgot to live in the present." The knight roared and struck again, this time faster, enraged. Kael dodged the first swing but felt the second slice tear through his side. Pain exploded across his ribs, but he didn't stop. He looked up at the towering alien and whispered through blood and grit, "Let's see if you can predict what a dying man will do." The Avarian hesitated, a flicker of calculation breaking in its gaze, and in that instant, Kael moved. A flash of light, a scream that echoed through galaxies, and the doctrine of the Avarians cracked for the first time in 10,000 years. Silence fell over the arena like the vacuum of space. Billions of eyes across the galaxy watched as Zirath, the undefeated Avarian knight, collapsed to one knee, steam rising from the shattered plates of his biometal armor. A red light flickered from the wound Kael had inflicted. No one had ever seen Avarian blood before. Kael stood panting, one hand pressed against the gash in his side, the other still clutching the broken handle of his plasma spear. His vision blurred, but he could still hear the whispers, horrified, disbelieving, angry whispers from the Avarian spectators. Their flawless doctrine of combat had been tarnished by a primitive human. Above them, the Chancellor of the Avarian Council rose from her throne, her 6 luminous eyes narrowing. "This is an impossibility," she hissed. "The doctrine cannot fail." Kael spat a drop of blood on the obsidian floor. "Guess it just did." Zirath struggled to his feet, his breathing ragged. "You are chaos," he said, his voice trembling with both fury and awe. "You do not fight with purpose. You fight with madness." Kael smiled through his pain. "That's what you don't understand. Madness is my purpose." He staggered backward as the arena's energy barriers flared, locking them both inside. The duel wasn't over. Varian law demanded one must fall completely before the match concluded. The alien's eyes glowed with renewed rage. "Then I shall erase your kind's stain with my own hands." Zirath charged again, his armor morphing into a sharp-edged symbiosis of weapon and flesh. Every movement was poetry in motion, every strike perfectly calculated, but Kael was no longer fighting to win. He was fighting to rewrite the rules. He ducked a scythe strike and drove a knee into the alien's abdomen. Zirath barely flinched. The counterattack came like a storm. Kael's body was thrown backward, his ribs screaming in agony. He coughed, gasped, but laughed through the blood. You're faster, stronger, smarter, but you don't feel. That's your weakness. The knight hesitated for a heartbeat, a small, almost imperceptible pause. That was all Kael needed. He triggered the failsafe on his combat suit. Nano-explosives hidden in his armor ignited in a cascade of blinding blue light. The explosion wasn't enough to kill an Avarian, but it created smoke-dense, electromagnetic, enough to blind their predictive senses. In that confusion, Kael whispered to himself, "Time to teach you what fear feels like." He leaped forward, his broken spear now crackling with unstable plasma energy. Through the haze, his silhouette became a phantom, erratic, unpredictable, human. Each movement defied the alien's algorithms, each step a contradiction of logic. The next sound the audience heard was the shattering of armor and, then silence again. When the smoke cleared, Kael was on one knee, gasping. Behind him, Zereth lay motionless, his armor dim. The human warrior had done the unthinkable. From the stands, Avarian guards rushed down, weapons drawn. The Chancellor's voice thundered across the arena. "Seize him. No human may defy the doctrine and live." Kael looked up, smirked and whispered under his breath, "Then you'll have to catch me first." The alarms of Tethranyne screamed like dying beasts. Crimson lights flashed across the alien megastructure as Kael Rhyne limped through the corridors, clutching his bleeding side. The duel had ended, but the war had just begun. Behind him, Avarian guards poured into the hall, their wings unfurling in metallic fury. Their voices echoed through the comm channels. "Contain the human, authorization for lethal force granted." Kael slammed his hand onto a control panel, overriding the alien interface with his translator implants. Sparks erupted as the door sealed behind him. He was running on pure adrenaline, now each step felt like fire spreading through his veins. The corridors twisted and pulsed with bioluminescent veins. Avarian technology was alive, half machine, half organism. The walls seemed to breathe, reacting to his movements. They knew he didn't belong here. He reached a junction where a massive observation window revealed the planet's orbit. Beyond it, hundreds of Avarian warships hung like predatory birds against the void. Kael exhaled shakily. "Guess I pissed off the wrong species." He opened his wrist console, searching for any human signal. Nothing. The Terran fleet had been wiped out weeks ago in the siege of Orion's Gate. He was the last, the only surviving human soldier in Avarian space. "Rhyne," came a voice from his distorted female. Human. Kael froze. "Who the hell?" "This is Lieutenant Vega. We picked up your transponder from the ruins of Tethranyne. You're not alone, Commander." For the first time in hours, Kael grinned. "You've got timing, Vega. I was starting to think I'd die a legend." "Focus," Vega replied sharply. "We've hijacked a stealth courier ship. It's in orbit, but you'll need to reach the upper launch platforms. The Avarians are scrambling interceptors. Move." Kael didn't need telling twice. He burst into a lift tube, overriding the controls again. As it ascended, his reflection flickered in the glass-tired eyes, bloodied armor, and the ghost of humanity's defiance. "They wanted predictable," he muttered. "Let's give them chaos." The lift doors opened into the launch bay, an enormous cathedral of starships and glowing portals. A dozen guards stood between him and freedom. Kael grabbed a plasma grenade, ripped out the safety pin with his teeth, and tossed it. The explosion lit the bay like a newborn star. Smoke and debris filled the air. He sprinted through the chaos, leaping over fallen alien bodies, firing bursts from his wrist blaster. Every shot drained his energy cells, but he didn't care. He was almost there. He could see the hangar doors, and beyond them, the void of open space. Then, a shadow loomed. From the smoke stepped a figure larger than any Avarian guard. Its armor was adorned with ancient sigils, wings stretched wide, a high marshal. "You dishonored our kind, human," it growled. "Now you will die nameless." Kael raised his weapon, smirking through exhaustion. "Funny. That's exactly what your champion said." The High Marshal's eyes blazed. "Then you will share his fate." The floor trembled as their duel began, still against plasma, instinct against doctrine, echoing through the hangar like thunder. The hangar walls pulsed with the rhythm of battle. Sparks rained from ruptured conduits as Kael Rhyne clashed with the Avarian High Marshaller being sculpted for war. Every strike from the alien's blade sent shockwaves through the floor, while Kael's parries grew weaker, his body on the edge of collapse. The High Marshal towered over him, a living monument of the Alien Combat Order. His armor gleamed like molten gold, his voice a thunderclap. "You are a mistake of evolution, human, a chaotic echo in the symphony of the universe." Kael spat blood and steadied his stance. "Then maybe the universe needs a little noise." Their weapons collided again, plasma searing through the air. Kael ducked low, barely avoiding a decapitating strike. His armor was failing attitude, flickering oxygen levels dropping, but his mind was sharper than ever. Every near-death moment carved clarity into his instincts. The alien doctrine demanded efficiency, precision, control. Kael had none of that left. What he had was desperation and, that he realized, was something Avarians could never compute. Your movements have no logic, the Marshal snarled. No rhythm, no order. Kael grinned through his cracked visor. That's the point. He feigned a stumble. The Marshal lunged, predictable, arrogant. Kael pivoted sideways, grabbing a fallen guard's plasma rifle without aiming. He fired. The blast tore through the alien's left wing, molten feathers scattering across the hangar floor. The High Marshal roared, his voice shaking the walls. You dare, yeah, Kael interrupted. I do. He hurled himself forward, tackling the alien head-on. The two crashed through the observation window, glass and energy shards spiraling into the vacuum. For a moment, time froze. The stars stretched around them like infinite witnesses as both bodies tumbled into the cold void of space. Kael's armor auto-sealed, oxygen hissing back into his lungs. The High Marshal wasn't so lucky. His wings flared, thrusters firing as he stabilized. He lunged again, striking with blinding speed. Kael blocked, barely. His energy blade sputtered, dying in his hand. The alien's fist slammed into his chest, sending him spinning into the black. End of your defiance, human. The Marshal's voice echoed over the cum. The void will be your tomb. Kael gasped for air, brain flickering between consciousness and blackout. Then his wrist console blinked an incoming signal. Vega Commander. We have visual. Activating tractor beam. In 10 seconds hold position. Make it 5, Kael grunted. He aimed his dying propulsion unit at the Marshal and fired everything he had left. The burst of acceleration slammed him straight into the alien, their bodies spinning together in zero gravity. Kael grabbed the Marshal's plasma core and tore it free. Energy cascaded like wildfire. The explosion lit up the orbit of Tethranina, blinding flare visible from space. The shockwave sent Kael hurtling toward Vega's ship. Inside the cockpit, Vega shouted, I've got him. The beam locked on, pulling Kael inside as debris rained behind him. He landed hard, armor cracked, chest heaving. Vega knelt beside him, eyes wide. You actually did it. Kael laughed weakly. Yeah, but I think they're gonna want a rematch outside. Hundreds of Avarian warships began to move silently, purposefully toward them. The chase wasn't over, it had just gone interstellar. The stars burned like silent witnesses as the stolen human stealth ship cut through the void, weaving between Avarian warcruisers. The hull groaned under the strain of evasive maneuvers, warning lights flashing crimson across the cockpit. Kael lay strapped to a medbay cot, his armor scorched and lungs wheezing through an oxygen mask. Lieutenant Vega piloted with trembling hands, her eyes darting across holodisplays. They're scanning for us, she muttered. Their sensor grid is tightening. If they triangulate our ion trail, we're dead. Kael coughed, grimacing. Dead's overrated. Just ... Keep us unpredictable. Vega shot him a look. You really think chaos can beat an empire? Kael grinned faintly. It's worked so far. A sudden shockwave rippled through the ship as an Avarian destroyer locked on and fired. Blue plasma beams streaked past their hull, grazing the left wing. The shields flared and flickered out. Shields offline, Vega shouted. Kael pulled himself upright, tearing off the oxygen mask. Divert power from life support to thrusters. That'll kill us in minutes. Only if we don't make it count, Kael said, limping toward the tactical console. Trust me, he rerouted the ship's power grid manually, fingers flying over the controls. The engines screamed as they surged forward, slicing through the debris field of a shattered moon. Plasma bolts followed, carving glowing trails through the black. Kael glanced at the radar. They're herding us. Herding us where? Vega demanded. Then the answer appeared on the holomap, a dead planet ahead, its surface cracked and glowing faintly red. Avarian Prime's war foundry world. They want us alive, Kael muttered, realization dawning. They want to parade me. The human who broke their doctrine. Vega clenched her jaw. Then let's give them a parade they'll never forget. She yanked the throttle, plunging the ship straight toward the planet's atmosphere. Plasma flared around them as the heat shields ignited. The Avarian fleet pursued in formation, their precision flawless. Kael stared at the planet's surface through the viewport, a vast sprawl of spires, factories, and energy forges. Billions of Avarians lived here, the heart of their empire. Vega, he said quietly, how much antimatter do we have left? She turned sharply. You're not serious. I am. If we can hit their foundry's fusion core, it'll cripple their ship production for decades. Vega hesitated, eyes wide. That's suicide. Kael looked out at the approaching fleet, their shadows blotting out the stars. No, that's humanity. She nodded once. Then let's make history. They dove into the atmosphere, alarms howling, hull burning. Kael's hand hovered over the detonation control, sweat dripping down his face. For Earth, he whispered. For chaos, Vega added. The stealth ship plummeted like a meteor, Avarian ships closing in from all sides. Kael smiled, adrenaline surging one last time. You still think we're predictable? And then he hit the switch. A flash brighter than dawn consumed the sky of Avarian Prime. The shockwave tore through the fleet, shredding warships like paper. From the ashes of that explosion, the rebellion began. The fireball that consumed Avarian Prime burned for 7 planetary rotations. The explosion was seen from every colony in the Orion armor, blinding wound in the heart of the Avarian Empire. Billions of citizens stared at their sky in disbelief as the unthinkable unfolded. The Foundry world, the symbol of Avarian supremacy, was gone. And with it, their illusion of invincibility. When the flames dimmed and the ash settled, the galaxy whispered a name. Kael Rhyne, the human who broke the doctrine. But Kael didn't see the aftermath. The stealth ship had been torn apart in the blast. Viega's last act was to jettison an escape pod, his escape pod seconds before detonation. He awoke days later, floating through black space, weak and half-conscious. A rescue vessel, a ragtag cruiser carrying refugees and scavengers, found him adrift. Its captain, a grizzled ex-mercenary named Tar Vox, pulled him aboard. When Kael opened his eyes, Tar was grinning down at him. You, the human who blew up half the Empire. Kael managed a faint smile. Depends who's asking. Someone who doesn't like the Avarians much. Tar leaned closer. You've got every rebel, pirate, and exile out there chanting your name. You just started a war, hero. Kael sat up, pain flaring through his chest. Not a war, he said quietly. A revolution. News spread faster than light. On dozens of worlds enslaved under Avarian rule, riots broke out. Factory workers seized armories, colonies declared independence. The Avarian fleets, once united by flawless doctrine, fractured under confusion and fear. Their predictive combat systems could no longer calculate the unpredictable. For the first time in 10,000 years, chaos had power. Weeks later, Kael stood aboard the rebel ship Eclipse Dawn, overlooking the galaxy through a cracked viewport. Vega's name was etched into his gauntlet, a reminder of the sacrifice that sparked the uprising. Around him, new recruits gathered. Humans, Avarian defectors, synthetic beings, all united by a single creed, freedom through unpredictability. Tar stepped beside him. You really think you can win this? Kael didn't answer at first. His eyes traced the star lines beyond. Winning was never the point, he said finally. The point was to make them afraid. The cum crackled. Commander Rhyne, incoming transmission. Avarian fleet approaching Sector 12. Kael's lips curved into that familiar, reckless grin. Then let's remind them who taught them fear. He turned to his crew. Prepare for warp. Randomized pattern. No predictions, no formations. Let's make the galaxy dance. Engines roared to life. The Eclipse Dawn leaped into hyperspace, leaving a streak of blue fire behind. Across the stars, rebellion spread like wildfire, unplanned, uncontrollable, human. The Avarians could model every outcome except one, a species that refused to follow the script. And in the chaos of their downfall, Kael Rhyne became more than a soldier. He became a legend, the first human to defy the future itself.